Good morning guys, I hope we're all well. In this lesson we're going to be focusing on inequalities. So specifically we're going to be reading inequality notation and we're representing inequalities on a number line. So in the next few minutes I'm going to explain exactly what these two things actually mean. I'm going to begin the lesson by asking you to write down all the numbers between 1 and 10. Please pause the video and give it a go. Okay, so thinking about a number line, you may have got something like this. So you may have got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. However, are there only 8 numbers between 1 and 10? No, that's not true. There are more numbers than that. What about decimals? So for example, thinking of a number between 2 and 3, I might have got something like 2.5. What about if I picked a number between 2 and 2.5? So for example, 2.2. But what about if I picked a number in between 2.2 and 2.5? What about 2.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? I could carry on doing this forever. I can always find a number between two numbers. Okay, so what about if I asked you, how many numbers are there between 1 and 10? Well, there are infinite. There are infinity numbers between 1 and 10. We know there are infinite numbers between 1 and 10 because no matter which two numbers I choose, I can always find a number in between them. So number lines are continuous, there are no gaps. Right? So, going back to my original question, when I asked you to write down all the numbers between 1 and 10, is that actually possible mathematically? Well, it's not possible to list them because I don't have a page or a computer screen that goes on forever and ever and ever. And I also don't have the time to list infinite numbers. However, there is some mathematical notation that lets me list all the numbers between 1 and 10. That notation is called inequalities. So looking at this, so this means that x is greater than 1 but less than 10, where x represents that set of numbers between 1 and 10. Okay, so these arrow signs, they're not called crocodiles, they are called inequalities. Okay, so an inequality is used to compare two things that are not equal. So equality means things are equal, inequality means things are not equal. So for example, A with this arrow sign and B, because the bigger part of the arrow points to the bigger number, we say that A is greater than B. What's the difference between this first one and the second one? Well, when you've got that extra little line below the inequality sign, that means that A is either greater or equal to B. Okay, and then if you flip that arrow sign around, so now if the bigger part of the arrow is facing B, that means that B is bigger than A or A is less than B. Okay, so let's put this to the test then. So for each of these values of x, I want you to decide which group does it belong into. So let's do the first one together. If x is 10, could x fit into group A? Well, group A, with this inequality notation, means that x is greater than or equal to negative 12, but it's also less than negative 6. Does 10 fit in that category? Well, no, it doesn't. What about group B? Is 10 greater or equal to negative 6? Well, yes, 10 is bigger than negative 6, so that works. But is 10 less than 0? No, 10 is not less than 0. So that doesn't work, so it can't fit into group B. If I carry on that process, I will notice that this first one, x equals 10, it fits into group D, because 10 is between 6 and 12. Okay, so please can you pause the video and decide which of these next few values of x fit into which groups. Okay, so for the next one, so x equals 0, so that has to fit into group C, because this group C, that means that x is greater than or equal to 0, because it's got the little line underneath, and it's also less than 6. So group C is that next one. Okay, next one. 6.7103, that fits into group D, okay, because group D is all the numbers between 6 and 12. And then our final three solutions are group B, group E, and group C. Okay, so please could you pause the video and have a go at task 1 on the worksheet that I've attached for you. So on this task, you need to decide, is this statement true? So for example, if x must be greater than 5, can x be 7? Well, that first answer would be yes, and I'm just going to write yes in the box because 7 is greater than 5. Okay, and then these are your solutions to task 1. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be doing in this lesson is looking at how to represent inequalities on a number line. So if you have a look at this inequality on my screen, this tells me that x must be less than 7. So this value x, it represents all the numbers less than 7. Okay, so looking at my number line, well, I've got my circle on 7, and my arrow just points to all those values less than 7. And that arrow would go on forever and ever and ever. Okay, but what about if I ask you this? How would I represent x is less than or equal to 7 on a number line? So notice how similar this inequality is to our previous one. So let me flick between the two. So do you notice the difference? Okay, so when I add that line underneath my inequality, that means that x could represent all the numbers less than 7, and it could also be equal to 7 as well. So when I have the extra line on my inequality, I colour in that circle. So let me just flash between them again. Okay, so if there's no line under the inequality, that circle remains blank. If there is a line under the inequality, that circle is coloured in, because that shows us that x could represent that 7 as well. Okay, so let's try inequalities with two sides then. So this tells me that x must be greater than -2 and less than or equal to 7. Think about, why have I coloured in this circle but not the one over -2? So why have I coloured the one over 7 but not the one over -2? Well, it's because when you have a line under your inequality, you circle that. So what this number line represents, it's got that line going through all the numbers between -2 and 7. I've coloured in 7 because x can be 7, but I haven't coloured in -2 because x must be greater than -2, so it can't be -2. Have a think. What do you think this next inequality would look like on a number line? So pause the video if you want to think about this first. I'll give you a clue, it's going to be similar to that first question there. Okay, so this inequality, this means it's all the numbers greater than -2 and all the numbers less than 7. Notice how similar it is. It's exactly the same, apart from the fact that I haven't coloured in this 7 circle anymore. Well, why haven't I coloured it in? It's because I don't have that line underneath that inequality sign. So x has to be less than 7. Because it can't be 7, I can't colour it in. Okay, so quick test then. So which inequality does this number line represent? So please pause the video and have a think. Well, so we know it's something to do with 4 and -4, but that doesn't really narrow it down because all of these have got 4s and -4s in. So when the circle is not coloured in, that means that my x cannot be 4. So my x has to be less than 4. It's not less than or equal to 4. So I know it can't be A, and I know it can't be C, for example. So x has to be less than 4, but x also has to be greater than -4, or it can be equal to -4 because that circle is coloured in. So it must have that little line. Okay, so looking at my options, it has to be B, because x is greater than or equal to -4, but it's less than 4. Okay, so please can you find task 2 on your worksheet? It is a true or false activity. So for each inequality and number line, you need to decide, has this worksheet drawn the number line correctly? So true or false for each question, please. And please find your answers on the worksheet and just let me know if you need any help. Thank you very much, guys.